Tudo bem? Fica, né? Vendo a foto?
Hello.
Welcome everyone. We will start the webinar soon.
Nice. Let's go.
Welcome everyone. We are about to start the webinar. We will start very soon. Just giving some time for more people to join. I'll just give it 5 more minutes and then we start. Okay, welcome everyone. My name is Ana Rocha. I am the Executive Director for Nipe Fagio. We are very excited to launch today our webinar series. It's starting today and going until October 7th. Basically, every Wednesday we'll have a webinar talking about different subjects in relation to solid waste management, and the environment in general. We talk about zero waste, we talk about climate, we talk about several different things. And today we are going to talk about the plastic life cycle from production to disposal. And we are going to discuss a little bit what is the impact of production in waste management, who is responsible for waste management issues and for plastic in our environment and all of that. We have three speakers that I am very happy to have with us. I'm very grateful that they could join. One is Delphine Levi Alvarez. She works with Zero Waste Europe and Break Free from Plastic. Daru, Rini, she works with ECOTON in Indonesia, and also Patrick Matandala, who now just joined the Nipe Fagio office actually since this week. So he's our new project coordinator. I would like to start the webinar before the speakers start. I would like to have a small poll so to see just what you guys think about plastic pollution. So here it is. You can vote on who do you think is the main responsible for plastic pollution, producers, consumers, or governments. Giving a couple more seconds for people who are still voting. Okay. Here we go with the responses. I think that gives Delphine a good start for her portion of the webinar. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker. Delphine Levi Alvarez is the European coordinator of the Break Free from Plastic movement. She has been driving a force behind the development of the movement's holistic strategy, linking to the broader global movement. She has played a central role in the foundation of the movement since its inception in 2016, uniting more than 80 European organizations under a common vision. Since 2017, Delphine is also the coordinator of the Rethink Plastic Alliance, the Brussels-based policy coalition working on plastic pollution issues across the European Union, and which played a crucial role securing ambitious legislation on single-use plastics at the European level. Delphine is based out of Zero Waste Europe, which leads the way in connecting the growing zero waste movement to the work of Break Free from Plastic. Welcome, Delphine. The floor is yours. Very happy to have you.
Hi, sorry, I was having issues unmuting myself. Hi, everyone. Thanks a lot for having me. I'm gonna talk to you about plastic. How surprising. I would need to be able to share my screen. It seems that it's not possible at the moment. If you can allow me to. It's just clicking on sharing screen, allowing multiple people to share. Hi, Priggy. Sorry. Daru and Fagio are
I think
kind
you can
of
say that it's free now.
okay. Great. So let's dive in. Are you able to see that in full screen? Yes, you are? Great. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Break Free from Plastic's vision when it comes to plastic pollution. It's going to give you some cues about what we talk about when we talk about plastic pollution. And I'm not going to dive into all the aspects also because Daru is here and she's going to cover a lot of that as well. But also because it's a very, very big topic. It's basically an entire value chain we're talking about. So Break Free from Plastic, we call ourselves the global movement to stop plastic pollution for good. And at the moment, we are a vibrant movement of more than 2,000 organizations on all continents. And also a lot of individuals have signed on to our vision statement and are supporting our activities on a regular basis. In Europe, where I'm working, we have about 100 active European members and thousands of supporters. And we have organizations that are covering the whole value chain because I was talking about plastics as a very wide topic, and I'm going to talk about that a little more. And we also have a coalition of NGOs that is working specifically on European policy, because we have the European Union. It's gathering 27 countries in Europe that are deciding on policies together, and that's a very powerful tool to regulate on plastic pollution. So the shared goal of the Break Free from Plastic movement is to bring systemic change through a holistic approach, tackling the plastic pollution issue across the entire value chain. And we're focusing on prevention rather than cure and providing effective solutions. When I'm talking about the value chain, I'm talking about the value chain. So from the production to the end of life of plastic, production of plastic is happening when we extract oil and gas from the ground to turn that into resins that are being turned into plastic products. So then you have the production stage. So using the resins to produce plastic products, and you add also a lot of different chemicals in the products to give them specific properties or colors. Then you have the retail level where products are distributed. So you go to the store and you buy your products with different kind of packaging. But between the production and the store, you also have business-to-business packaging. So you have business-to-business packaging and you have business-to-consumer packaging. Then there is your house where you consume the products and what happens there when you consume products that are either wrapped in plastic or plastic products. And then there is a waste management level where when you're done consuming something that involves plastics, it's put in a bin, and depending on where you live, it's handled differently. And everything that kind of escapes the waste management system ends up in the environment. So at Break Free from Plastic, we work on changing the dominant narrative on plastic and mainly shifting the blame from the consumer that is littering to the producers that are actually designing products and logistic chains that are triggering plastic to leak into the environment. We also work on changing corporate behaviors so that they actually transition towards less wasteful business models. And we work on building zero waste cities so that we prevent waste at source, but also optimize waste management systems to prevent leakage into the environment. And this is all done in working in synergies with other movements because it's a topic at the crossover with climate issues, health issues, women's rights, workers' rights, and so on and so forth. So some of the lessons learned, and I only have two actually, even though we could write a thesis about the lessons learned from this work, are that when you look at plastic pollution, when you hear the word or the words plastic pollution, most people think about this kind of pictures. So the bird with a lot of plastic in its belly, dead on the beach. You also think about Southeast Asia and all the pollution there. So that's me a long time ago before Break Free from Plastic was Break Free from Plastic. We're doing a beach cleanup in the Philippines. So So that's what most people think about when they hear plastic pollution. But what's important for us is really to go and look beyond the tree. You know, this proverb that says, that talks about the tree hiding the forest. So it's very important for us that we look beyond the tree to see what's the forest, and that we actually look beyond those usual pictures that we see in media and on social media. And when you look closer to the plastic topic, plastic pollution is also about all the chemicals that we put in your products. So for example, in plastic packaging, we found over 11,000 chemicals in your packaging. They're not all necessarily harmful for your health, but most of them are. So that's also what we talk about when we talk about plastic pollution. That's the chemicals we put in your products. It's the case also for menstrual items. If you're a woman, you may use tampons and pads, or if you have babies, you may use wipes. A lot of these products are plastic. You may not even think about the fact that they are plastic, but they are plastic and they contain a lot of chemicals. And I know that Daru is going to cover the diapers as well, so I'm not going to dive into that. If you have kids and they have toys or spoons or cups, this is probably plastic as well. And this plastic is containing sometimes harmful substances. For example, because we're not able to properly trace chemicals in plastic products at the recycling stage, sometimes recycled plastic contains very harmful substances and then ends up being used for grooming products or toys or things like that. And that's a massive issue. So really the plastic pollution issue is really occurring all along the plastics value chain. If you wash your clothes and they're synthetic, 70% of fabrics today is synthetic. That may release microfibers into the environment. So that's another source of plastic pollution that may be invisible to your eyes. And at the waste management stage, in a lot of countries, we burn plastic and we call that waste to energy or energy recovery, these kind of things. But burning plastic is burning not only fossil fuel, the fossil fuel that was used to make plastic, but also all the chemicals that go in it. And that creates obviously pollution, air pollution, but then also pollution from the treatment of the ashes of the incinerators. And that can go into the soil, into the water, and or be just breathed by people, depending on how the ashes are stored. If it's not incinerated, it's landfilled. And if it's landfilled, it also decomposes. It also creates greenhouse gases emissions, and all the substances in it will leak into the soil and the water. Then people say, well, but the solution is recycling. The challenge with recycling is that only 9% of everything that has ever been recycled since the 1950s has been actually downcycled. No, everything that has been produced since the 50s, only 9% of that has been recycled, and most of that has been downcycled, meaning that you haven't used a shampoo bottle to produce a shampoo bottle. You've used a shampoo bottle to produce fleece or a carpet or a bench or a bucket, all those things that may not be recycled afterwards. So it's really, let's say, depleting the stock of material, and we're not in a circular economy because we're not using the same product to make the same product. So if you go back to the root causes of this problem, it's really about why do we have so much plastic? And a lot of people could think that we have so much plastic because we need so much plastic. But we actually have a lot of plastic because we produce a lot of plastic, and we produce a lot of plastic because the petrochemicals industry is making a lot of money from producing plastic. And it has been increasingly the case since they discovered fracking, for example, in the US. So when we talk about plastic pollution, we also talk about that. That's where plastic comes from. This is a refinery in Texas. There was an accident, a fire. This is polluting the air of a lot of people around. This is a good friend of ours working for the movement, and she's talking about what they gave them to protect themselves from the toxic fumes outside their windows, and it was, again, plastic. So as a movement, something that we've been really highlighting is the link between the big profits that the petrochemicals industry is making and the fact that we're flooded with constantly new products that we don't necessarily need. And I'm always struggling to leave this slide. So like half of the plastic ever produced has been produced since the year 2000. And since the year 2000, there was this very clear phenomenon happening, which is the boom of the fracking industry in the US. And quickly the fracking industry, to become viable, has understood that they had to do something with all the products from the fracking. So not only the methane that they would use for energy, but also all the other gases that they would be able to extract from the process. And some of these gases, in particular ethane, is used in plastic production. So they're actually now making even more profit producing plastic than producing energy, which was the first purpose of exploring fracking. And because of that, they need outlets for this material. And so they're finding customers for that. So we're actually not having plastic because we need it or we're asking for it as consumers, but we're having plastic because a lot of people produce plastic and sell plastic and create needs that we don't even have. So we are, in most cases, today exporting plastic polymers or feedstock for plastic from other places, meaning that the pollution may not happen where we live, but it happens where it's extracted and where it's transformed. And in most cases, it's happening in places where the ones who are suffering from that are local communities that have very little resources to defend their rights. In Texas, for example, it's mostly Spanish-speaking communities that, and all the communication is done in English, so they have absolutely no possibilities to defend their right, their air, and the companies are going around the schools and the communities propagating lies. Basically, they tell kids that they're cloud factories because you see clouds coming out of the chimneys. So this is really where the extent of what we're talking about when we're talking about plastic pollution. And this is very alarming in a way because we know that the petrochemicals industry is actually becoming one of the main drivers for the oil demand. That is one of the main drivers for the increase in the CO2 emissions. So our, let's say, climate credit is really eaten quickly by the petrochemicals industry. And the second lesson that is for me one of the most important one, because I come from I live in Belgium, but I come from France, and I work for a European organization, is that usually what we hear in our countries is that global North countries have to go and save global South countries from plastic pollution. They have to teach those people things. They have to give them money to do to clean up the environment and so on and so forth. What we've learned from this movement, even if some of us knew that before, is that we have absolutely nothing to teach to global South, because most of the time we are creating the problems that the global South are facing at the moment. And so a lot of people think about plastic pollution in the global South like that. Like, oh my God, oh, these people littering things into the environment. But actually, when you look at it from closer, so we've done brand audits all over the world. When you look at it from closer, you actually see that the same companies you can find the products from the same companies everywhere in the world. And it's most of the time because the way they design their products and the way they distribute the products is actually not made to produce anything that is manageable in terms of plastic waste, especially all the single-use sachets that you will see on my next picture is really a big FMCG from the North strategy to sell more products in the global South. And there is a real double standard here, because when you look at shelves in Europe, you only have big bottles of shampoo and you have a producer responsibility on it, and people are actually paying for the management of this waste. companies are paying for the management of this waste, while in other countries they distribute that in packaging that is not manageable, and they don't even pay anything for that. So that's a real issue when we talk about that. And then in addition of sending our products in very poor packaging and retailing systems, we also send our waste to Southeast Asia, but also to Africa. And so there has been an increasing awareness that a lot of the waste that is polluting the environment in developing countries is actually European or American or Australian waste, or Japanese or Korean waste. And there has been tremendous work done by our colleagues there to highlight this responsibility that we have. So for me, what's more important, and that's the idea that I want to leave you with, is that even if in some cases, when we think about Southeast Asia, or Africa, we think about this kind of pictures of poor people barefoot and so on and so forth. But for me, this is where the real heroes are. And I didn't make it on purpose, but there's some people here that are in my presentation. So this is, for example, our colleague Fry in the Philippines, who's been fighting to lead really the way on developing zero waste cities all over Southeast Asia, and who's really an incredible environmental advocate. There is Daru here, who's fighting against the companies that are polluting their rivers and also polluting, also creating issues for children's health with a lot of diapers full of chemicals. Or people like Anna, who are fighting for regulation in Tanzania. And I want to say, even if I work in a place that is always celebrated for very progressive policies, a lot of African countries have way more progressive policies when it comes to tackling plastic pollution as source than what we have in most European countries. So I think it's really about refocusing the debate on where the real problems are, but also where the real solutions are. And I think the solutions are in everything that's happening behind like closed doors, and also what you can't see on TV, but it's happening. You're organizing brand audits, you're doing cleanups, you're promoting zero waste wherever you're going. And I think that's where the future that we want to create is actually already happening. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Delphine. That's great. I think that gives us a very good overview of how some of the assumptions that we have when it comes to plastic pollution are actually wrong, and how we need to actually dig deeper to be able to understand better, like the reason why we have all this plastic in our environment, where it's coming from, who is benefiting from it, and all of that. So thank you so much for that. I would like to welcome everyone in the webinar to also ask questions. So you can please type your questions on the chat box. If you look on the bottom of the screen, you'll find a button there, written chat. You can type your questions there, and we make sure that we respond, hopefully all of them, at the end of the webinar. So while we do that, I would like to now welcome Patrick Matandala, who, as I said, is now, since this week, working with Nipe Fagio. Patrick is a solid waste management expert, as I said, now working with Nipe Fagio, but previously working with the I4AG here in Tanzania in a solid waste management work stream. He has a large portfolio as a solid waste management freelance consultant, provided technical expertise and research-based solutions for different local and international organizations, as well as local government authorities, including Ilala, Morogoro, Miseni, Ilemela, and Nyamanaga in Mwanza. Patrick has solid 7 years experience in the waste management sector with sound knowledge of integrated solid waste management plans and delivery, technology and infrastructure design, municipal service planning, WASH, and private sector development, drawn from 7 years of professional experience in Tanzania. He has led numerous research projects in the waste management sector, including a diagnostic study to review solid waste collection and recycling sectors, He holds a Bachelor of Arts in Community from Tumaini University and has attended many different international and national waste management practices. So you can also see the bios for everyone on the chat box. So please, Patrick, welcome. Let me unmute you. Mariette, here you go. Oh, sorry, I muted you again. Here you go.
Thank you, Anna. Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick. Currently, I work for Nipe Fagio as a project coordinator. And today I want to share with you the experience, but not only the experience, but the challenges and the recommendations, specifically on the plastic management in Tanzania. Let me share the screen.
Please make sure that you speak a little bit louder. Some people said that the volume was a little bit too low. So.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Anna. As I previously highlighted, I would like to share the experience, specifically based on what we have been doing in Tanzania as a private actor, but also the government on dealing with the challenges of plastic waste, but also we'll come up with some recommendations on the best way to cut off the single-use plastic usage. You are welcome. So prior diving deep into the subject, I would like to share the common understanding of the solid waste. When we talk about the solid waste, we can refer to unwanted solid materials generated from human activities, and this can either be from residential, industry, but also commercial areas. You can see there are several definitions of waste, but from my side, I could term waste management. I mean, waste is unwanted solid materials. And there are too many categories of waste, which are organic waste and inorganic waste, whereby for the case of developing countries such as Tanzania, we have the large fraction of organic waste, which is biodegradable waste, whereby around the 55 to 75% of all waste are waste which can be composted. The other fraction comprises of recyclables, which is around the 20% to 30%, while the waste which if nothing to be done, which need to be dumped up, around the 5 to 10%. So you can see from this information, there are huge potential within the sector, whereby around the 80 to 9% of waste can be recovered and treated. But due to some challenges, such as minimum capacity of treating waste, but also lack of recovery facility, around the 80 and the 90% of waste goes up to landfill. And in most cases, these landfills are unsanitary and unmanaged landfill, which in turn, they end up in causing a lot of environmental and health hazards. So when we try to reflect where have we come in terms of waste management and the plastic challenge, Tanzania has come through several phases. At the first, this was just after independence, up to 1990s, where solid waste management sector was run by the state. And during that stage, waste was only collected and dumped to landfill. So you can see there were very limited awareness of the environment and the health impact which are related to unsanitary dumping of plastic waste. Things started to change around the mid-90s to 2000, whereby there were some element of private engagement in solid waste management sector. And during that stage, there were rise on community awareness but also community awareness in terms of the health risk associated with poor management of waste, but also the opportunity in the recycling sector. But specifically when talk about plastic recovery, things started to take off around the mid-2000s, where there were huge investment from local and the foreign investors, and mostly were the Chinese, the Indians, but also there was a lot of local actors involved within the sector, and the mostly was due to favorable policies. But also, it is quite important to note that during that era, there were we started to see the engagement of informal sector, because you cannot talk about waste management without reflecting the role of the informal sectors, the waste pickers, but also the community-based organizations, which were focused not only in managing waste, but also correction of plastics. Plastics, mainly the plastic which has market value and the share to the recycling companies based in Tanzania. So where are we now when we talk about the plastic product management? According to World Bank Group, Tanzania Country Environmental Analysis 2019, plastic products have been termed one among 5 industrial sectors which appear to have highest pollution loads. So you can imagine around the 80 to 90% of all waste go to the landfill, poorly managed, but also you can see what can this waste contribute to the environment. The other industrial sectors included the basic iron and steel, basic chemicals, vegetable, and the animal oil and fats. Also cement, lime, and the plaster, another sector which contribute a lot in polluting. So you can compare, if you compare plastic with the other industrial sector, you can see the health and environmental risk imposed by plastic are much more higher compared to these other industrial sectors. So why is the plastic, we say, is much more threats? Plastic is much more threaty because the sector is muchly dominated by, I can say, irresponsible production of plastic, but not only the production, irresponsible production, the end users of these plastics have very limited awareness on the proper management of these plastics. Although the government play a crucial role to, and of course has been proactive and have a political will to end this single-use plastics, but you can see there are several plastics such as beverage packages, soda and the water bottles, straws, and most of food packages which are produced, but with very limited engagement from producers. They produce without showing a responsible way to track and commit to mitigate the risk out of the waste they produce. But also there's a huge, very huge concern on how the community manage waste. Most of the waste are littered and they end up in the water streams, whereby approximately in Dar es Salaam alone per day, it approximated that around the 180 tons end up in the ocean. Waste, plastic waste is banned, but also is being buried. But the common practice is just to dump it and transported to landfill, where of course it is being dumped without any a very clear supervision. So just to give a brief reflection, what are the channels or the flow of the plastic in Tanzania? Of course, it is quite important to reflect that we have huge number of imports, plastic imports. yet the plastic and rubber sector is among the robust sector in Tanzania. We produce a lot of plastic within the country. As I said earlier, the producers do not pay very, they do not pay attention in the responsible way they can recover this waste. So the waste goes directly to the population. For the case of population, Tanzania, we appear to produce more compared to other developing countries in Sub-Sahara, whereby per capita we approximately around the 1 kg is produced per day, while the other Sub-Saharan countries produce around the 0.4 up to 0.6. And if we reflect it to plastics, the most produced plastics is the PET and the LDPE. After that, there are collection in the transportation system. Collection of waste in the transportation, which are managed by private actor, but also the government contributes. Here we can see some element of separation. So you can see there are no element of source separation, but the separation are done by private actors, mainly at the collection points. After having waste separated, a very minimum number, which is around the 5 to 7%, sent to recycling treatment, while around the 80 to 90% of waste goes to unsanitary landfill, which of course we know that it ends up in the water bodies. For our case in Dar es Salaam, it's the Indian Ocean. There are many reasons for very minimal number of waste being recovered out of this waste flow. But the core issue is lack of source separation. There are some plastic which appear to have market value, but mostly are tainted, quite difficult to recover them because there's no source separation. So the quality and the quantity of waste recovered is very, very minimum. Despite a small number, plastic recycling still is among the most robust and the competitive, but also vibrant value chain compared to other subsectors. This sector, it already a lot of actors, and of course it can employ different business models. But as I highlighted earlier, from waste consumers, we can see there's a huge engagement of waste informal sector, which are waste pickers and the individuals. And at this level, which is like the very initial level, when we talk about the plastic diversification, we can see very high competition. And these waste pickers just collect and the aggregate raw materials. And then there's a second group, which is aggregators, blockers, and the middlemen, which also we have a very good number. These are light and medium processing industry. In the lastly, there are large scale formal industries, which is highlighted the area owned by mostly external, the foreigners, the Indians and the Chinese companies. Is in most developing countries, this sector appear to be functional, although poor implementation of policies impair recovery and diversification of waste. So we can see a lot of waste end up being dumped in the landfill rather than being recovered. By saying that, I can acknowledge that Tanzania, we experience a lot of health and environmental challenges due to poor system of recovering waste. But I can say among of the key challenges are the floods caused by river dumping. And I can give a case of what we experienced around the April 2 years ago, whereby just a single flood claimed the life of 15 people. And while we try to review what are the main causes of a flood, rather than having too much rainfall, we come to agree that a clogging of drainage systems was behind the floods in most area, especially CBDs of Dar es Salaam. So this is quite a big issue. But also we are clear that it is dumping of waste and the limited recovery has resulted to domestic and the wildlife harm. And this is to include the marine life, because all waste goes to the Indian Ocean. Also, another key challenge, which comes as a result of a poor practice in terms of waste management, is emission of toxic gases. We ban plastics. There are issues which related to uncollected waste, some policy issues, but also we know that the private sector is not very strong. So some areas, it is quite difficult to collect waste. In most of the household turn to either digging pits, but if not digging pits, they ban waste without realizing the health risk they impose to themselves and their families. But also, littering impact a lot tourism. But for our case, we have made a very huge improvement, because Tanzania government has banned the plastic bags from 1st June last year. So somehow we can see the amount of plastic bags along the streets are now, you cannot see this waste due to the policy improvements. So the question is, what could be alternative? What could be alternative to a plastic problem? Or what should we do? Is the solution existing? I think also I'll try to reflect from the question which Anna, you posted before starting this webinar, who is quite responsible. I think dealing with plastic require multi-sector approach. It is not a question of pointing finger to a certain group. The producer has role to play, government has role to play, but also the consumers, the individuals has role to play. By starting with the government, since the government laid the rule of the game, it is important to have the government who has the political will to engage itself in combating the plastic pollution. That is very crucial element. You can have very good policies and regulations, but without a political will, you cannot set money, you cannot invest human resources to do policy follow-up and ensure these laws are implemented. But also, the regulations are quite important. It's important to ban single-use plastic, but also non-recyclable plastics. But also, it is important to reflect on the producers. They must commit themselves to what they produce. But for the communities, it is important to raise awareness on the health and the environmental hazards of the plastic waste. And the best option is to refuse single-use plastic waste, opt for substitutes, but also reuse, recycle, and recover can be an option. I think I've tried to explain a lot, but also I would like you to insist on the economic potential of the sector. There are, you can have the drive from the government, but also the private sector can play a very crucial role. Associations and the network such as the Tanzania Recyclers Association can play a role, but also we can see a huge opportunity for employment for the currently unemployed youth. Thank you. I think that marks the end of our presentation.
Thank you, Patrick. That's a very great overview. And I think that for all of us here in Tanzania, we are quite familiar with how much plastic we have in our environment, also with the problems that it brings. We feel that and we see that on a daily basis. We have terrifying pictures of rivers covered in plastic. And we cannot ignore the fact that we don't actually have proper infrastructure for solid waste management in general, and especially for plastics as well, which contributes a lot to the problem. So thank you for your presentation. We are recording all the questions. There are several questions. We are going to do our best to answer all of them in the end. So please keep sending your questions. And I would now like to welcome Daru Rini to give us her presentation. A quick introduction, just 1 second. So Daru, it's a great pleasure to have her here. Daru Rini is Indonesian environmental biologist, currently works as program development manager at the NGO ECOTON that develops advocacy and community awareness programs to promote sustainable watershed management and environmental pollution prevention in Brantas River Basin in East Java. The river has been polluted by single-use plastic waste, especially disposable diapers, sachets, and plastic bags. ECOTON is implementing Zero Waste Cities program to develop a model of decentralized solid waste management in Great Six City to reduce plastic waste leakage into rivers and beaches from domestic sources. ECOTON is also doing a campaign to ban imports of unsorted paper waste mix with dirt and non-recyclable plastics by paper mills in Indonesia from developed countries that cause rivers and air pollution due to plastic waste dumping and waste burning near the paper mill area and along the river banks. Daru can also give us a very good presentation on the impact of upstream decisions in the communities downstream. So without further delay, thank you, Daru. It's a pleasure to have you here. Let me unmute
you. Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Daru. So I am now as a Zero Waste City project manager, also in ECOTON. I will share my screen from my laptop, and I will show it.
Yes, I think it's better for you to share yourself.
Yeah. So ECOTON is based in Indonesia, East Java, in Brantas River. We are a member of Break Free from Plastic movement and also member of Alliance of Zero Waste Indonesia and also International Pollution Elimination Network and Gaia. So I am so happy to share with you this evening about the situation of plastic pollution impacts in Indonesian rivers.
Just letting you know that your screen is still not being shared in case I have already started sharing the screen.
Okay, I will share from my laptop then.
Yes.
Okay, can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the situation along the River Brantas. If we sail by boat on the riverbank, left or right, it's very common to see big piles of waste dump on the riverbank. So we're doing a campaign to increase awareness and also to gain government attention about these problems. So I will share you about the condition of the plastic pollution and also microplastic, and the problem with disposable diapers, sachet packaging, and then waste rate of paper and plastic waste from developed country to Indonesia, and how bad is plastic recycling process that has been done in Indonesia, this microplastic and toxic pollutants, because most of the small-scale industry ignore the environmental protection and waste treatment. So waste dump on the riverbank is very common, and this picture taken last week, we have women group join our campaign. We took them to the river by boat and sailing from the upstream to downstream to identify how many dumping sites along the riverbanks. So this is what we found. Not only domestic waste, we also found industrial waste dumped on the riverbank, and also people burn the trash on the riverbank, and the ashes will goes to the river when it flooded. And those dumping along the riverbank also will release microplastic. We done research in ECOTON, cooperated with Airlangga University last year in 2018 and 2019. We analyzed microplastic in the water sample from the river at 7 locations, and we found 293 to 2,500 microplastic particles per cubic meter of the water sample from the river. So we found some microplastic types, such as fiber is the most dominant, and also some filament and pellets also from the plastic. Not only in water, the microplastic also already found in the fish stomach, in shrimp, and even in human feces live near the riverbank. This is our laboratory in our office. We also involve students, interns, to help us to analyze the microplastic. So we can see very easy to identify the microplastic, because the color is so bright, and also the form is different with other biotic or river organisms. So it's really clearly we can we can know that it's the microplastic. So this is the source of microplastic in Brantas River, according to some references. So total the input is about 3.89 times 10. How to read it, for plastic. So mostly it comes from the personal care products, such as face wash, body wash, toothpaste, that contain microbeads. It releases about 17 to 500 milligram microplastic per gram of the product. And also plastic bag, we calculate about 1.75 million microplastic particle per plastic bag. And we also 1 million diapers per day in Brantas River, and also 700,000 microfiber from cloth and washing. And in our research, we found that 80% of fish collected from Brantas River contain microplastic in their stomach, and also in shrimp and in the shellfish. After finding that data, we make like a demonstration in the city. So we make a giant fish, and the stomach is filled with diapers and other plastic waste to gain people attention that our river is already polluted with microplastic. Not only microplastic, the river is also polluted with other plastic chemicals such as the endocrine disrupting chemicals from diapers and other plastics such as volatile organic carbons, phthalates, polyacrylamide, glyphosate, etc. So these are the mermaid. Actually, they are male mermaid, but they become female because they have fish feminization. They have intersex. So in one body, we have found that in one body of fish, they have two gonad. They have ovum and also they have testosterone. So it becomes sterile fish. It cannot reproduce anymore. And in the river, we put a trash boom to identify the inorganic waste composition in Surabaya River. After a week, we collect all the waste and we found total waste collected 821 pieces. As much as 47% were diapers and 12% were sachet packaging and 11% was styrofoam and other plastic. So this diapers is very dominant because nowadays in my area, more than 90% of the babies use disposable diapers instead of cloth diapers. So the waste is very big number. So not only in East Java, also in other places in Indonesia, in Jakarta area, in West Java, in Central Java. So it's very common to see diapers in the pile of the trash along the river. We also do make mapping of a diaper waste dump site in Java Island, and we found there were 84 sites along the Java Island that has a dump site of diapers. So what we do, we have a campaign to clean up the river from diapers and bring the diapers to the city office in the city. And we also did a brand audit of diapers we found in the river. And Unicharm is the biggest polluter of diapers, followed by P&G, Softex, Goon, Kimberly-Clark, and Kao. This is the common situation in the bridge across the river. So bridge become a favorite place to dump the diapers. So we collect the trash from the bridge, and then we send it to the government office, or we call them to pick up the trash. And for the household waste, we also did a waste assessment and brand audits involving the local group of women and students. And the brand audit results show that there are 10 plastic waste producers dominated by household product that package in sachet and flexible multi-layer packaging such as detergent, shampoo, instant noodles, food seasoning, snacks, and drinks. So the first rank is Wings Group. It's a local Indonesian group, followed by Indofood. It's also Indonesian company. And the third place is Unilever. So these three polluter is the biggest plastic sachet polluters in Surabaya River. After finding the data, we also collect the sachet from the river and also from the household and bring it to the Wings Group head office in Surabaya. They refuse to take the sachet, so we have to take back the sachet. And now we are planning to file a lawsuit to the top two polluters, Wings Food and Indofood, and we also will sue the government because of the neglecting the river pollution with plastic pollution, with a plastic waste. This is the situation also in the village near the beach area. Beach and river usually far from the city center, so the government do not provide collection service to the village near the river or near the beach. For example, this is the waste generation in Gresik, in my city. Total population is about 1,300,000, and the daily waste generation is 387 tons per day. And the waste management system in Indonesia is not really well implemented. Yeah, so the waste generated from the household, they will collect the recyclables by the waste bank, but it's only cover about 7% that will goes to the recycle facility. And most of the waste are still mixed waste, so we don't have a segregation at source yet. So most of the waste collected from the household is still in mixed waste that will goes to the MRF facility, but it's very limited number of MRF available in the village. So most of the waste will just burn or dump on the riverbank or dump on the empty backyard of the house. And from the MRF, government will provide intermediate transfer and will goes to final disposal. So about 60% goes to landfill, and 33% is going leaking to the environment. So this is the system we have from the household collected by the local collectors to the intermediate transfer and then sent to the landfill far away in the city. So it's really expensive to bring all the waste there. And for the waste that unmanaged, people just burn it. And we conduct a research with IPEN to analyze the impact of plastic burning in the dumping side of imported waste. And we found that the dioxin content in the egg from the village that become the location of the burning plastic contain 70 times higher from the safety standard of dioxin in the egg. So it's really high. This is how they burn the plastic scrap from the imported waste. It's imported by paper mills, so it still contains some non-recyclable plastic, and those plastic will goes to the tofu factory as a fuel. So they burn plastic scrap to cook the tofu, and it releases really black smoke and toxic ashes. There are a lot of paper mills that depend on the imported paper waste. We need 3 million tons per year of imported paper waste. But the paper waste is being smuggled with the non-recyclable and dirty plastic waste, such as multi-layers and flexible plastic. And after China banned importing plastic waste, Indonesia became the second biggest plastic waste importer from UK and from Australia, also from USA. So we imported 4 types of waste paper. The dirtiest type is unsorted scrap paper. It contains, it should contain about less than 3% impurities. But in the field, we have information from the paper mills that unsorted paper waste can contain 30% of non-recyclable and dirty plastic. It's really huge number because we imported 3 million tons of paper waste per year. In East Java province, we imported 800,000 tons in 2019, and 18% was unsorted paper waste. The unsorted paper waste is increasing because the price is very low now, and most of the paper mills prefer to buy low raw material to gain more profit. And the effluent of the paper mills also release microplastic. There are 11 paper mills in East Java, and all of them we found microplastic in their effluents. This is the paper mills. They collect or they import the paper waste and they just put it on their area. And they took all the paper and then they dump the plastic waste on the riverbank or send to the community that will segregate and collect some valuable plastic and then dump or burn the non-valuable plastic on their backyard. So this is how they burn it. We found a lot of, mostly it's non-recyclable plastic because it's dirty and it's multi-layer and flexible plastic, thin plastic and plastic bags from Australia. And this is also the wastewater that we found. It contained microplastic. The paper mills discharge this wastewater into the Brantas River that become the source of the drinking water supplies for millions of people. And also the plastic recycling is very dirty process where it's done by the really small scale industry. They don't have wastewater treatment facility. They use groundwater, a lot of groundwater to wash this plastic after they chopping. And what we do, we make a petition online to demand Indonesia stop importing plastic waste. Right now, we almost reach 500,000 supporters. So after we get the number, we will send it to the Ministry of Trade to demand government to stop importing paper waste to Indonesia. So the last message, maybe we have to reduce because we already overwhelmed with a lot of plastic, and only 9% of the plastic globally has been goes to the recycle, and most of them are just leak to our environment, polluting our rivers and our ocean and also our air. So that's what I can share with you now. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Daru. That is a very, very informative presentation. And it's quite terrifying as well to see the situation. Again, I think in several countries it's similar. But when you actually see data over it and you see pictures, it makes it very real, which is obviously terrifying. I also used to love tofu, and now I'm thinking twice before eating tofu again. I think forever in my life. I would like to go to the questions now. So we have several questions, and I encourage everyone to keep adding your questions to the chat box. Whatever questions you are not able to answer during the webinar, I will make sure that we answer and send you the answers by email afterwards. So please, you are encouraged to add all your questions here. I'm going to unmute our speakers so that they are ready to answer the questions. Let me just find Patrick here, 1 second. Here he is. There we go. Patrick, you can please turn on your video so that you come to the front here. So some of the questions that have been asked, and I tried to record the name of the person who asked the question as well. So Delphine, I think this question is for you. What advice would you give us here in Africa on how to deal with the dumping of waste at the policy implementation level? And this question was asked by Adam Setenda.
That's a big question. I mean, first I would work on preventing waste from being dumped, by in particular using a lot of the traditional material that have been used forever in Tanzania, a lot of traditional products that have been replaced by single-use plastic products or plastic products in general. And once waste is generated, I would work with waste pickers on organizing door-to-door separate collection to try to maximize recycling of as much material as possible, selling back to material traders. And then I would favorize small-scale, locally administrated landfills that have the potential to be flexible in time, that are not that high in terms of investment. The real issue with landfills, and that's why you tend to see a lot of investment in rehabilitation of landfills, is when you bury organic waste. And because that's where it starts fermentating when it starts producing methane. So when you actually have a separate system for organic waste, whether it is feeding animals or doing composting, or even in some cases, there are very interesting cases of small-scale anaerobic digestion systems to produce methane locally. I've seen that in I think in Ghana, but probably you have also examples in Tanzania maybe. So if you really reduce at source everything that goes into a landfill, that could create this kind of issues of fermentation and so on and so forth, you really just end up with dry waste that just can be stored there. And the thing with the landfill is that you are basically incentivized to fill it up as slowly as you can, which is really a way to maximize prevention, reuse, and recycling, and incentivize decision makers to go towards prevention, reuse, and recycling. While if you build more capital-intensive installations like incinerators, you do have to feed it at the same capacity, at the same amounts for the entire time to make your investment viable. So it's absolutely working against reuse and recycling. I don't know if that answers your question. I hope so.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah,
and I think
also I'd like to contribute.
Just 1 second, Patrick. I think it's just one thing that we should also mention here is that most of our cities here in Tanzania, we don't actually have sanitary landfills. So we call landfill, but it's actually a dump site. So I think that's also important to mention. Patrick, please go ahead.
Yes, but also I'd like to contribute on that. Yeah, rather than focusing on the approaches and the methodologies of dealing with the plastic waste for the case of Africa is a question asked. I think we should also focus on changing the perceptions. Yeah, most of the people still think that waste management, taking care of environment, but also minimizing plastic is something to be maybe driven by the government. People think waste management is the role of the government. Yeah, I mean, people should take initiative. We say, usafi unaanzia nyumbani. We need to take initiative. It is not like someone has to come and tell you to separate your waste and maybe to force you, maybe getting economic incentive so that you can do that, rather than focusing on the environmental and the health benefit you and your family can benefit. I mean, people first should take a responsibility. If we are responsible, it will be easy to be a pressure group forcing the policymakers to do on what we are believing. It must be the change we are preaching.
Thank you, Patrick. And that's true. I think we definitely need to be pushing the policies that we believe are important for the environment. It's also important to remember that if you think about Tanzania, from our waste and branch audits, and answering one of the questions myself that has been asked, we have a question from Shabani Ugama. What are the recommendations as Nipe Fagio that we provide to the biggest polluters concerning the way of reducing plastic production and protecting the environment? We at Nipe Fagio, we do tons, like many waste and branch audits, just like the ones that Daru showed in her presentation. We have the results of the waste and branch audits being publicized frequently, and we also have the compiled results for like a year, for example, 2019. And we make sure that these results get to everyone, including to the producers. Because the truth is that for some of the products that we find out there, and about 80%, 75 to 8% of the plastic pollution that we find at beaches, rivers, and communities in Tanzania are produced by local companies, which gives us, at the same time, a great opportunity to go there and fix the problem, and also a very challenging one, because we don't actually have the power in country yet to be able to push for that. And so I think that's also one of the recommendations, and that is linked to what Patrick is talking about, is that we need to push. So if there are policies that we would like to have in place, if you think that extensive producer responsibility is important to be implemented, we also need to call that and to push for that. And for that, we need to have the information, the necessary information to make those decisions. I would like also to ask another question here that is from Adam Setenda to Daru. Daru, he wants to know if there are any measures that you have introduced at the household level to reduce waste, especially when you think about plastic bags, plastic bottles, and sanitary pads.
Yeah, thank you, Adam, for the question. So, what are the measures we already done to introduce reusable alternative? I think first we have to start from ourselves. We have to become a campaigner and a model of the zero waste lifestyle. We start with our self, and then we encourage the whole family to do the same. And then our office also, we always serve non-packaged plastic drink and snacks, yeah. And we try to also invite other group, especially women's and students. We have a school campaign to educate them to reduce single-use plastic in elementary school to the university. We visit the students so they know plastic is become problems everywhere, and plastic is unmanageable. If we don't reduce it now, it will become more difficult to manage. Right now, it's already very difficult. So we have to, we also introduce, like when we have seminar, we bring them, we give them souvenir like reusable bags, tumblers, and for the women organization, we introduce to use cloth diapers. So how to use a cloth diapers. We have one group of community that already changed from the disposable diapers to cloth diapers, and we ask government to provide the special container to collect the diaper waste and to provide regular collection of the diaper waste. It's still running until now for the diaper waste. And now we also doing advocacy to push the diaper producer to provide the collection and also provide the treatment facility for their diaper waste. So it should not become a burden to the community, to the government to manage the waste that produced by the company where they can make profit, but they leave the cost for the environmental pollution to other stakeholders.
Thank you, Daru. That's great. Yes, we definitely need to work. We definitely need to work in several fronts, because I think from the picture we could see how big the problem is. So the solutions also need to be big enough and diverse enough to solve this problem. Patrick, there is here a question for you as well. And I think this is going to be the last question that you have time to answer. But as I said, whatever questions are not answered right now are going to be answered through email. So please keep sending your questions if you have other questions. But there is a question from Marco Dotto. He says, in Tanzania, the plastic and waste management services are more emphasized in Dar es Salaam city, and most of the data about plastic pollution is recorded in Dar es Salaam as well. Why such services are not much encouraged to other regions? Let me just unmute you, Patrick. I think you are mute. 1 second. Here we go.
Thank you, Marco. I think that is quite an interesting question, and there are several initiatives have been done to push the private actors to engage with local government authorities, which are somehow forgotten. First of all, you need to understand that waste management problem is much associated with population density, but also, I mean, how complex the actors, but also the consumption pattern of people. For most private actors, they prefer to work in areas where waste is a problem. You can make a small difference. How waste is quite a problem in Dar es Salaam, in the maybe Mafinga. There are two different scenarios. So that criteria attract home actors to engage with the area which is far much more pressure. So this applies to recycling also. In most of big towns, I mean, there are prominent private actors, including the recyclers. I mean, so it is far much more easier to develop like a really workable business model. You can just do a simple reference in a small town such as maybe Korogwe, where the sector is muchly operated by the informal actors with the pickers and the government as a government. Currently, we are developing the national contracting guideline with TAMISEMI, trying to see the best way different municipalities can make use of the private actors without interfere with the regulations such as the procurement regulations. We have been visiting several municipalities such as Korogwe, Arusha, Moshi, Iringa, Mafinga, Dodoma. We are trying to draw, solutions, what they suggest, and of course we are now compiling the document, and maybe next week we will present it to TAMISEMI and see what they respond. But those are the reasons which attract actors to engage with big towns rather than small towns. I hope I've answered your question. We are trying at least. Yeah?
Thank you, Patrick. Yes. And we have several teams in the regions as well, trying to exactly address the situation. And we have trained people to do waste and brand audits in the regions as well, and to be able to address the situation. I think our time is almost over, so I'd like just to launch our poll. That is now our end of webinar poll. So please click on your answer here. I hope you can see it. There you go. Giving it a couple more seconds for people to vote. Yeah. So here we go, sharing the results. So thank you very much, everyone. I think this ends our webinar. Thank you very much, Delphine, Levi, Daru, Rini, and Patrick Matandala for taking the time to talk to us and for the great presentations. Everyone who participated in the webinar and would like can have a certificate of participation as well. So we are going to be doing that based on your emails used for registration. So thank you very much. I would like to remind everyone that we have webinars now every Wednesday until the 7th of October, always at 3 p.m. And the next one next week is Zero Waste as a Solution to Solid Waste Management on the 2nd of September. We'll have speakers from India and the Philippines joining us, and also from C40. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. So thank you everyone for participating. Thank you our speakers, and I hope to see you again soon. Bye. Thank you.